Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. We have Mitra Ahouraian today, who is a lawyer from Los Angeles. And Mitra is a first-generation immigrant, and she became a lawyer, and she served in the entertainment industry. I look at her as a more of a new generation lawyer, kind of being on social media, sharing law tips and all that. So welcome, Mitra.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and for that introduction.
Absolutely. So in your own words, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Persian, so identity-wise and culturally, I was raised Persian, and not that I was raised Persian, but I am Persian. And I'm a Baha'i, so I'm a member of the Baha'i faith. I was raised in a Baha'i family. It's an important part of how I live my life and the way I approach my work. Grew up in Los Angeles, been here my whole life. And, my journey is an interesting one. I wasn't really planning on going to law school, but it's the career sort of found me and I found my place in it. So
how did that happen? Tell us that story. I am curious. How did you become a lawyer?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one. It's just one of those things that life causes you to move in a different direction than you had planned. And I had my whole childhood and into college, I was planning on going to medical school. So all the hard work and everything that I did my whole life and the studying was really leading to that for you. That for me, that was my dream. And I was at UCLA studying psychobiology. That was my major. And I was pre-med at one of the most prestigious schools for being for pre-med. And in my last year at UCLA, my dad got very sick and we were very much in crisis and survival mode in my family. And I decided that I wanted to stay local and be able to be with my family and help care for my dad. And medical school was a commitment where you had to be willing to go anywhere in the country, depending on where you matched. And it was also something that was going to be, it was very hard to think of something that long term while we were so living day to day with my father being sick. And in that last year, we didn't know what was going on with him yet. So we were in and out of emergency rooms, in and out of hospitals. We were going to both Mayo clinics and doctors across the country. So I decided to go to law school because it was 3 years. And I said, okay, well, I can do this and I can always come back and go to medical school, but 3 years, I can kind of see what my life's going to be like and I could stay here and manage that. And just kind of looked into it. I wasn't the kid that dreamt of being a lawyer. I didn't watch legal dramas and movies and things like that and say, that's what I want to do. Or really aspire to be like any of the lawyers on television or any that I knew. I didn't take any steps to prepare for a career in law because all the places that I interned or did research at or had, my part-time jobs in school and all of that was all doctor's offices and research labs and all of that. So I made the decision and I took the LSAT, which is the exam that you take to get into law school. And I ended up scoring really, really high. And I really enjoyed it, which is something that most people find, interesting because who enjoys a test, but I enjoyed it. It was using a part of my brain that I hadn't really used in a while because I was studying science for so long. So it was using kind of these other, reading comprehension and things like that, that I guess sort of somewhat prepare you for law and don't really prepare you for law. Actually, they don't even prepare you for law school, but it was areas that I wasn't really using. And I loved to read and write. And that was a big part of my childhood. And the years that I was studying science, I didn't really have a chance to tap into that part of me. And so I thought it was fun. And I said, okay, I can do this. This might be enjoyable. And that's how I ended up going to law school, really thinking that I probably wasn't going to practice law. And if I did, maybe it would be something tied into medicine in some way. Certainly not what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. And then how did you get into entertainment law?
Well, when I graduated, I thought that I would be going into patent law. because you have to have a science degree in order to practice, to even sit for the patent bar. And that was something that made sense. So I was working at a larger firm on pharmaceutical patent cases and preparing to take the patent bar. And I was put on, randomly just assigned a case that was a major merger. A big entertainment conglomerate was buying another entertainment conglomerate. And the Department of Justice was inquiring into their pricing practices before they approved the merger. And in the course of doing that, we had pulled the hard drives from all of the executives at both companies. And I discovered that one of the executives at one of these major conglomerates was teaching a course in entertainment at UCLA. So my father had just passed away, and I was filling my time with really as much as I could do. I was working very long hours. And so I decided to take a course that I, said, this is kind of interesting, just because I'm the kind of person that's always taking classes. I've taken acting classes, voice classes, piano, even as a practicing lawyer, I've taken more neuroscience classes or journalism, just things that I find interesting and enjoy. So I was like, this is something I don't know much about. And that led me to taking another class and led me to taking another class. And I ended up doing their entire program in the entertainment business. And through the course of doing that, one of my professors ended up being a mentor. And I did a short internship with her. And then I ended up leaving the firm that I was working at to go pursue this opportunity. And she and I started working together. And she taught me so much of what I know about practicing entertainment law, and really everything took off from there.
So when we talk about entertainment law, can you kind of paint a picture for us, the kind of cases that you would see?
Sure, yeah. So I'm typically involved in, excuse me, in film and television productions. So from the very start of a project, when someone, let's say, has an idea for a movie, I really do all of the legal work from beginning to end of how a movie gets made, from the corporate work to the financing deals, to all of the contracts with the directors and producers. Sometimes there's two production companies that are working together. All of the contracts with all the actors. All of that, and then things like protecting the copyrights and trademarks, and making sure that the project goes through to distribution. So then there's deals with the major studios or a Netflix or Hulu or Amazon. And so really it's the process of getting a film or television show made. I also work in music. So when I work in music, I'm typically representing artists, musicians. I represent writers, I represent actors who are involved in so many other things, writing books, or having production companies, or involvement in other investments and kinds of things like that. So branding, those kinds of things. So really the entertainment realm encompasses all of these things, anything that you can think of that is considered entertainment. I would do all of the legal contracts and also protections and processes along the way.
And then your firm, Ahouraian Law, how long has it been since you established that?
I want to say 7 or 8 years, maybe longer now, but it's been a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that, you have this curiosity that drives you to learn things. And then you also, I know, are pretty active on social media, with law tips and all that. So the general sense or the general notion of a lawyer is somebody in suits, very sophisticated and all that, and you come across as a totally different kind of lawyer. Anything that you're trying to do in terms of getting law that much closer to people?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's one of my huge goal of mine, really. And part of what I think is one of my purposes is just making the law accessible with people that either come to me as clients, or people that find themselves in legal situations, even my family, my friends. Most of them don't know very much about the law. And unfortunately, you don't know much about the law until you're having problems with it. And then you learn very quickly. So I'm very passionate about making the law accessible. I believe that the average person should at least be able to understand some of the basics of our justice system, how things work, even contracts specific to my industry. I'm very passionate about making sure that people who are in my industry understand the things that are in their contracts. Oftentimes, there are clauses that you'll see that are very common to all contracts, and I want my clients and also the average person to at least be able to identify where there might be issues. So, and then with regards to the suit and, and all of that and the very corporate feel, of course, I can play that role when I need to, but I have so many interests, and, being a lawyer is part of what I do. If you ask me who I am, that's not going to be my first answer, because we're humans and we're complex. And, as I told you with my history, I have so many other interests that I was passionate about and I'm still passionate about before I even got into law. So that doesn't go away. And even now, to be a balanced person, to be somebody who operates in the world with, empathy and integrity and those kinds of things, those are things that are in me outside of my practice and that I bring to my practice. So, I like to present myself as who I am as a whole and be relatable and approachable so that people can learn from some of what I know. Sometimes that divide is not useful.
There's also the notion that, when you need a lawyer, trying to get a lawyer for that matter itself, even trying to talk to a lawyer is pretty expensive. And that's where people try to stay away from lawyers or anything that has to do with law for that matter. What's your take on that?
It's tricky because that ends up costing people down the line. And it could end up costing people more money down the line. So my recommendation is always to, if you feel like you are in over your head, or if someone is handing you a contract and you're just signing it without understanding it, then that's a problem. If you can budget for a lawyer, sometimes there are things that will not take that long that we can handle for you and at least get you far enough where you're not making a huge mistake. The mistake is signing something that you don't understand. And that's the most important thing. So if I can help people understand a bit more about what they're signing and where those red flags might lie, then that will at least help someone not get themselves in a situation where they don't understand what's going to happen if something, down the line that affects their lives in a very, in a very significant way.
So let's understand Mitra as a person, right? So I believe you had a car accident at one point and you took time to recuperate. At the same time, you were on a self-learning journey, self-discovery as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the car accident was actually, I was at a firm. So I had sort of built my practice at that point to a very successful place. At the time I was litigating, and I also had some clients of my own that were not lawsuits, that were transactional. But the lawsuits that I were handling were all high profile, in the news, written in Forbes, different publications. And at that point, I had decided to go to a firm that so that I could work under somebody who was more experienced than me, who had, decades of work under his belt. And so that I could use the credibility of that firm, because I felt that, I'm only a couple of years out of school. Why do I have these amazing opportunities? Why do I have these really big clients? Maybe I don't even really know what I'm doing, because even though the world was telling me I was good and I was, getting results, I still wasn't the person that was planning on being a lawyer for years and years. So there was still part of me that said, okay, you need to go to an environment where somebody knows more than you, which is a beautiful thing to do. But unfortunately, that situation resulted in me sort of falling on my face, which ultimately is a good thing. But that the individual that I worked for, when I did have my car accident, sent me flowers in ICU and then put an ad out for my job. and took the opportunity that, while I was healing, to look for people to take my place and take my clients and not give me my share. And I was left having to decide whether I should fight it, because I did consider filing a lawsuit, or move on. And ultimately, I decided that, this is somebody that enjoyed lawsuits and litigation. So I figured that he would probably enjoy the process quite a bit and it would take a toll on me. And of course, I was healing physically, but also emotionally from the situation of having everything that I worked so hard for taken from me. And I was still planning on applying to jobs and firms, and I didn't want to have to explain my last employment ending in me having to file a lawsuit and being that person that filed lawsuits against their employers. So it was a tough choice. So I decided not to pursue it and move on. And that's when I decided that I'm just going to have to do everything again on my own and build like I had built before. And I didn't need the experience of someone who had been practicing for a very long time, because I had to remind myself that I had already established myself as somebody who was capable and really excellent at what she did. And it took going through that for me to really confirm my belief in myself.
One of the aspects, that part of your journey was, tackling, fighting with that imposter syndrome. In your mind, what is imposter syndrome and how did you overcome it?
It's a feeling of, why am I so successful? And people don't know that I'm not really good enough. Or it's a feeling of, everyone around me thinks that I'm something bigger than I am, or more important than I am, or better at something than I actually am. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. Mine really came from not having spent enough time wanting to go into this career. That's really where it came from for me. And also, I've always excelled in school. I've always excelled at everything that I've done. I was, always at the top of my class. I was number one in some of my science classes at UCLA. And so going into law, I always, even in school, felt like I had a disadvantage and that other people had a leg up on me because it was such a quick decision. And even going through law school, those were the hardest years of my life. My dad was very sick and he was dying. And I didn't do as well as I normally do. I wasn't the top of my class. And I think that also for me was like, maybe you're not good at this. And so I took that feeling with me into the beginnings of my career, where even though the opportunities that I got, or even though the work that I was doing, I was getting a lot of external validation for, internally, I still felt like, well, but they don't really know that I'm not that good, or I don't know what I'm doing, or, and why is somebody writing about me in an article? Like, I'm going to play along because this is really cool, but, but I really, and it was early enough in my career where I guess questioning those things wasn't that unusual. But I'll tell you that, even sometimes now, it's still, having all these years under my belt and, like, of course, having well-known clients and having seen a lot of positive results with the work that I do, there's still moments where that comes back to me. And it's a very real thing. And I know a lot of people struggle from it no matter where they are.
Having built your business, then lost everything and having to rebuild again, I'm sure you learned a lesson or two about perseverance and pushing forward and not losing yourself with the loss that actually happened. How
Yeah,
much how much support did you look for in that process, externally versus internally?
none. Um, I So I've always been a self-learner. I read every book that I could possibly read about business and about, whatever I can get my hands on, and came up with my own plan. And the hardest part wasn't that. The hardest part was waking up every morning and being my own cheerleader when it was just me. And I think that, I do lean on mentors. I lean on people that have gone before me that I can learn from. So it's not that I can say that everything is just me, but it has been me doing everything, or it was me doing everything. And I think that there was also a certain, I needed to show myself that after having been at a firm that really took from me in a lot of ways, I needed to show myself that, you know what, you need to remember when you were good and why you're good. You need to remember why you're doing this. You need to remember the moments that you felt on top of the world because you loved what you were doing. Because, I was very down about the law in general and working at a firm. And once I really tapped into that, I mean, this was a very personal journey for me to create something within the law that I loved. And that was my firm. And so I spent a lot of time writing out what my life was going to look like, what I wanted it to look like, where I wanted to be in X number of years. These are things that I hadn't thought about before, because I was very much living day to day. I went to law school thinking 3 years from now I can do something else, and I started working thinking that I don't, I'm just passing time, while I was mourning my dad. And so for the first time, I really sat down and made a plan, and that took a lot of really looking within of what do I want my life to look like. And it was important to me to do that on my own and have that journey on my own. I have throughout my life, like I said, leaned on mentors quite a bit and going to, panels and hearing from people. So I did a lot of things like that, go attending a lot of panels and taking a lot of classes and reading a lot of books. But really, particularly that first, it took me about 2 years to get back to where I was. And to me, that's impressive for me, because for me to be able to rebuild when I was in such a low place and get to a place that I was before, but have done it completely on my own, was something that I could be proud of. And that was a moment in time for me. I'm not saying that I don't lean on people now and that I don't, have support, but for that moment in time, it was important that I do it myself.
Absolutely. One thing a lot of people face, and I don't know if this is a part of imposter syndrome or not, but who you are as a person versus who you portray yourself as a professional, people generally try to keep those two apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then they live these two different lives, or they put a mask on every time they're out at work. I personally feel that the more you bring them closer, the more at peace you're going to be, and the better off you're going to be, and you're going to thrive in both environments, personal as well as professional. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, especially, in law, people really struggle with that because both other lawyers and the community expect you to look and speak and act a certain way. Somebody taught me, I don't know if it was in law school or where it was, but someone taught me, don't bring it home. Don't go home and talk to people like a lawyer. Don't go, don't, argue. And so I've always been very conscious about keeping my personality and who I am and not turning into something just because this is my job. And that was very important to me. And also, I've known that there is a certain strength and power in the experiences that I have had in my life that are different from anyone else's, that I'm able to bring into my work, that I'm able to do that's different than what other people do. It may not be for everyone, and that's fine. But for, like you said, it establishes a certain humanness. And some people want that. I think that there's definitely power in being yourself, particularly today. People find it refreshing. And in having my own firm, people are coming to me because of me. Ultimately, I'm the brand. They're coming because of who I am. And so if I'm not who I say I am, and if I'm not acting like the same person at work than I do with the people in my life or, other areas of the community, then, what are they, can they trust who they get? And that's certainly, I'll say that that's been a journey in my personal life, pre-law, because I have had to play many roles, as many people do: the good daughter, the good student, the good girlfriend, all the different aspects that I'm sure you had to sort of navigate how to have them all be one person, as you're kind of finding your identity. And so that was kind of me coming of age, having to figure out how to reconcile those things into, okay, who do I want to show up as consistently, no matter what I'm doing and who I'm dealing with? And so that's something that's I found very important. And again, like, if I want to try and make the law accessible, I have to be accessible about who I am, like my truth and who I am. And that's how you connect with people, not by playing a role. And that has nothing to do with professionalism. That has nothing to do with doing the job right and doing it well. That has nothing to do with knowing how to speak to people in different situations. But it has everything to do with how you show up in the world and in whatever circumstance comes your way.
Absolutely. So what's the best way people can get in touch with you?
So right now I've, as of this year, like many people, I've become more active on my professional social media. I've always been active, of course, on my personal, but I have been making focused efforts to put out legal tip videos on my Instagram, which is the handle's Mitra ESQ for Esquire. So Mitra ESQ. And as of the past few months, I've been very active on Clubhouse. So you can find me there. I moderate a lot of different rooms. And the one that is probably most notable is a room called Entertainment Law Exposed. And that's Thursday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific every week on Clubhouse. Last week was a very exceptional week. Every week is not like this, but we had, some celebrities in there, Tiffany Haddish and Bethany Frankel and Patty Stanger. And we ended up having 35,000 people come in and out. Normally the room has about 200 people, but we try to answer questions and also be very accessible to people who have real concerns or just want to learn. And so that's a good place to find me now, for as long as that journey, goes on for. But the Instagram and the tip videos, I plan to keep for quite a while. And so anyone could find me on either of those platforms. And of course, on my website, and the bio in my on my Instagram page will also take you to my website and to my blog. I'm also on LinkedIn, of course, and all of those platforms. So, and also here.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mitra, it's been a pleasure talking to you, finding out about, your life as well as, what you feel about personal growth. And definitely it's refreshing to talk about all these other topics. And at the same time, also knowing that you're trying to get that much closer to people in order to make law accessible. So thank you so much. And before I let you go, one takeaway, anything that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. Be your own cheerleader and always continue to learn. So I would say.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.